Welcome everybody to OPPS, Older People's Peer Support, and we are going to be talking to all these people today, and we've got 8 speakers, and we're looking forward to sharing our enthusiasm and passion for being a part of self-help groups that we've started ourselves, and we're working together and we're laughing together and we might be crying together, but anyway, we're sharing our passion for life. So now, just to kick us off, we are going to have a poll. Now this is quite exciting for people who don't usually do polls, and if you can't do the poll because you're on a phone or a tablet, don't worry, all will be revealed afterwards. Okay, so Ian, oh wait a minute, just before you start the poll, don't think about it, just do it. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. 2 seconds flat, do it. Because you could say, oh, well, on this occasion, I would do this. And in these circumstances, I would do that. Well, don't think about that. And then push submit. And then it'll bing onto a pie chart, and we can look at the results on a pie chart. So it'll all be great fun. That's the theory. Okay, Ian, poll, please. Ooh, get your thing. Just click on yes or no or whatever. Where do you click, Ian? Because
yeah, you won't see it, Sue, because yourself as a co-host, so you might.
I won't do it. Okay, I'm not doing it. Oh, I can see all the other people clicking on it. Hooray! Oh, click, clock, click, click, clock. Are you comfortable with using online resources? Oh, dear, oh dear, oh dear. Have you all clicked?
Yes.
Click now or forever hold
Yes.
your
Yeah, we're at about 20 responses now of 22, so maybe 2 people haven't voted.
90% have voted. I'm going to call an end to this poll. That's it. End of polling. Yay.
Okay, I'll share results, Sue.
Looking forward to this pie chart. Oh. Can you all see, are you comfortable with asking for help? 55% are and 45 aren't. Now that's very interesting. You see, this is all good for discussions. It's almost, you know, are you comfortable with asking for help? I don't know. All right. The next question was giving help. Yes, 100%. Look at that, 100%. Can you all see what I'm seeing?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Are you comfortable with contacting people who share your interest in something? 100% are. That's excellent. Are you comfortable with using online resources? And Monica says she's okay with online resources as well. No, 25%. A quarter of us aren't. Isn't that interesting? That's great. Okay, Ian. Any thoughts on that from anybody?
This is only good till 12. We want it on to 12. 12:30.
Yes, David.
Well, I think some people are just don't ask for help because they feel that they can manage it on their own. But I think it proves to be too difficult. But they just can't sort of admit they need help, and I think I'm one of those.
I think that's a very good question. We're going to remember those questions because I think those 2 things, asking for help and not being able to be happy with online resources, I think those we can bring up in the discussion later on. Okay, now, what am I supposed to do now? Ian, speakers. Right, we're going to do the speakers now.
Stand by.
We're going to start with Joe. Thank you very much, Anne, who is sitting next to me and is going to be helping with seeing us through the event. We're going to turn over to Joe, and he is going to launch our thoughts for the day on peer support from the council and mentioning and in charge of prevention and something else. Joe, what it is?
Development, Sue.
Yes, that's what it is. That's what it is. Over to you, Joe. 3 minutes, and Anne is timing you.
Meet faces on this International Day of Older People, so I'll keep it brief. Sue had asked me to come along and just open things up and link a little bit about peer support into what we do in the city around volunteering and social action. We launched a new strategy back in 2017 called People Helping People. And there's a really strong link between that concept to building reciprocal relationships and peer support, because we were sort of recognizing that there are a number of sort of very challenging issues in society, such as loneliness and isolation, rising health inequalities, people struggling with their well-being. And what we needed to do as a city, as a community, is work more collectively on tackling some of those very pressing problems. And now we're living in a global pandemic. The clue is in the title, People Helping People. Seeing people as assets, seeing people as active citizens, and tapping into their gifts, their talents, their skills, their experiences, their agency, and connecting people. One of the things we would like to see through working more closely together is how we can truly build a more connected, caring, and compassionate city. And the solution from our perspective is in people and communities, not necessarily in services, in service land. I work in adult social care, and previously we often intervened in people's lives at a point of crisis. What we want to do is now have a different conversation that reflects prevention and community development. And peer support is a great example of that. York is very well blessed, mobilised and rich voluntary and community sector. And there are a number of people on the call from such groups today, like YOPA, like York Neighbours, you know, Age Concern, etc. But how we can all maybe connect a bit more deliberately around this agenda and support one another to reach out and support others is key for us. Seeing how the helped can be helped by others. Now, 3 minutes I had, hopefully I haven't overrun. I had the finger come up from Anne and Sue to tell me you had a minute left, so I'm going to cut off at that point. But I think peer support is just a great concept. Everybody needs people, everybody needs help, and often the solution is through better connections and being more confident in asking for help. That's it from me. Ahead of the bell. Yes.
So what right, there's a couple of things. Anne has agreed to to warn the speakers that there's 1 minute left, and then she's got a little Dutch bell. I've told the speakers this, I haven't told the attendees this, so they don't know what the heck we're doing. So I'm just letting them all in on it. And the other thing I forgot to mention is that Linda is, where's Linda gone? Linda is taking notes, and so that we all have a record of both visually and in note form afterwards for people to ask for, and we can send them on to you. That's what I'm supposed to say. I'm next. Oh my giddy goodness. Okay, so wait a minute. Can you just wait until I do my screen sharing? Okay, I've got a little slideshow to show you about Aging Without Children York and how we started. So here we are. Hope you can all see this. AWOC York, Aging Without Children. And you can be aging without children because you are chosen not to have children, because you can't have children, because your children are disabled, or they have mental health problems, or they might have scattered, they might have gone off to Australia or London or somewhere, and they're not there. They're not round the corner to help you. Or actually, now I come to think, you might not like them, or they might not, they've gone off you, or you don't want to be a burden. That's the other thing. You don't want to be a burden, you don't want to ask for help, so you're not going to talk to them anyway when you need help. For all these reasons, there are millions of AWOCs in this country, and there are even more millions all over around the world. So aging without children is part of the loneliness and isolation issue. Okay. So Kirsty Woodard started it about 5 years ago, and what you need for, if you're going to launch a group, is a launch pad. So the York 50 Plus Festival, which I happen to be coordinating in 2015, I thought, right, let's have an Aging Without Children event in this festival, or somebody is putting something on, let's have an Aging Without Children event. And we can then set up our own AWOC group in our own town, or in our own village, or our own city. So this is what there's the idea I want to seed. Start with a launch pad. Say, yes, we're going to have a peer support group of AWOCs in our town. Then you need to find a venue. So you wander in and out of pubs, or you wander in and out of wherever you do, and you find a downstairs room, and they say, yes, you're welcome to come and meet here every month. Yes, let's do it. So you've got your venue. You then get your speakers for each month, and you can see we've got fraud and scams and safe places and human rights and adult social services and help. Anyway, you've got all these speakers, and you line them up, and you say, right, every month in the afternoon we'll have a meeting, and then the next month we'll have evening meeting, so we catch everybody. Then you do some publicity, and you put out posters and things like that. Doodly doodly doo. Then there you have your meeting, and there you are meeting for the first time in your pub, and you share your experiences. So it's a self-help group, you share experiences. I'm just silencing the bell for a second. I'm cheating. Matters arising from the last meeting's note. Oh, you send notes after every meeting to all the people who've signed up. You have your speaker, you share resources, and then any other business. And there you have your meeting, you've started your self-help group, and off you go. And now we've got about 140, 150 people in AWOC York, and we keep in touch every month, and we are still keeping in touch throughout the pandemic, even though we're not meeting. So we've now changed over to emails every month regularly, and we're now just looking at, well, actually we are now doing weekly Zoom meetings for people who want to Zoom with us every week. So Anne now rings the bell at me, ding, 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 and tells me that I have had my 4 minutes, so I've cheated, but hard cheese, I'm the host, so there you go. Totally unequal. Right, okay, sorry. Now it is over to Sarah Collis from Self-Help, and she's down in Nottingham, struggling with her connectivity, but through thick and thin, we will survive. So over to Sarah.
Good morning, everybody, and happy International Day of the Older People. I think it's a fantastic event that's been put on today, bringing so many amazing self-helpers, as we like to call you all at Self-Help UK, people who are out there setting groups up, working with others, getting people together, reducing isolation, and actually, you know, having fun and making friendships, which I think is something that we all need, particularly in these difficult times. Little bit about Self-Help UK. We're a national organisation. We are based down in Nottingham, where we first grew up nearly 40 years ago. And we work with groups just like yourselves, face-to-face, hands-on. We learn our craft. We're not one of those organisations that does all the talk and doesn't understand what you all do. We're very much involved in developing groups with you, helping groups get funding, doing training for groups, giving you advice for those of you that are key, what we call key members, those leaders, the volunteers that get groups going and keep them going. And so we've been around for quite a long time. We work with over 300 and something groups here in Nottinghamshire, and everybody here today is very representative of the type of groups that we work with face to face. But our big thing really is about how we can reach yourselves in other parts of the country so that you can get access to our online training, to our resources, to support from people like Linda, who's here today from my team, to help with events and getting things going, supporting events as they go along, and being there for you. We've got a phrase that's called on tap, not on top, so that we can be here as a resource to you whenever you need us. But we're very much about supporting those groups that have been doing it for themselves, that haven't been set up by somebody else, that it's very much about peers coming together. Thank you, Anne. I want to just say a little bit about self-help in the way that we do research, which really helps, because we've done a lot of work actually understanding the benefits of groups like yourselves with lots of different universities. And there's some real things that I wanted to put out there that are, there's a thing called the helper principle, where you help each other, you help yourself, you give hope to each other, friendship, you save money for the system. That's been proven. When you come together in groups like yours, you actually save money, and you use the services that are out there more discerningly, which is something that we all have to be conscious of as we're aging and needing more help and services. So I'm really pleased to be here today, and I'm really excited to be joining your discussions about the benefits of self-help groups and how we can connect together better going forward. So thank you.
And you've muted yourself again.
I have. I'm doing the right thing at the wrong time. Sarah, I'm very grateful to have Sarah with us, and you can tap into her guide, and that will help you with starting or continuing self-help groups. So that's what it's all about. How do we do it? Excellent. Okay, and the next person up is Ian Anderson.
Thank you, Sue, and hello. As she says, my name is Ian Anderson from the Heworth Retired Men's Forum. I was chairman for some years, so our current chairman, Alan Humphreys, has asked me to speak. Tired and lively men from their 70s to their 90s who meet fortnightly from September to May to hear talks of topical interest, with the occasional outing to places like the Yorkshire Air Museum. Topics range from climbing Stromboli volcano to the gardens of Yorkshire, being a Chelsea pensioner, foreign travel, and talks by charities such as Guide Dogs, the Yorkshire Air Ambulance, and the hospices. And each year we're able to donate several £100s to local charities. But our peer support comes from the fact that we look out for each other, as several of our members are in their 90s, as I mentioned, and some are widowers. One is over 100, although he's in a care home now. Our chairman has been doing a great job in keeping in touch with the members during the lockdown. For example, one of our members recently was 99, and 4 of us went to sit with him in his garden, and we took a cake and a card to cheer him up. And we also try and offer support to members who are bereaved. It was all started about 40 years ago by 2 men from Rowntrees, as Nestle was then called. We call ourselves Heworth Retired Men's Forum, not because we live in Heworth, but in fact, members come from all over the area and all walks of life: policemen, railway and telephone engineers, solicitors, teachers. New members come from personal introduction, though also from adverts in the local link and the council website. So all retired men are welcome when we start up again. And just one final comment, if I make, and I'm sure that applies to most of our older people's group, the problem of those who are not on the internet. And how does one keep in touch with them, particularly at a time like this? Very difficult, and I think it would be useful to hear people's ideas of how we can overcome that problem. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ian. I love it because often this is the stereotype that men have fewer networks than women. Yes. as they age, and I think it's such. I'm glad you're stirring the pot, and everybody is bubbling away until they're over 100 and everything. I think that's excellent. And we need to spread the word. So we need to spread the word that this is what's happening, and it's been going for 40 years, and people are supporting each other with their birthdays when they're 99. So if you're a man and you want to reach 99, you've got to join the Heworth Retired Men's Forum. That's all I can say about that. Okay. Okay, and now we're going to go to David Roberts, and there he is in the middle, and he's going to be talking about the York Carers Forum.
Okay, well, good morning, everyone. Kate and Irene began the York Carers Forum in 2008. Both had worked at Meadowbeck Nursing Home in Oswaldwick, York, and knew what it was like to care for someone and to try and find help. The group has not been government funded, although it has received the occasional grant from City of York Council. The forum became a registered charity in 2010. The reason it stopped being one in 2019 was that the forum had to pay a regular fee for being a registered charity. In return, it would receive a regular payment of just £200, which was paltry. Currently, the York Carers Forum has £4,000 in the bank. This is due mainly for not having to pay for venues during the pandemic this year. Their revenue is through fundraising, people contributing to refreshments, and bringing in items to sell. The forum used to hold regular raffles, but the regulations of their current venue, the Quakers Meeting House, currently prevent them from doing so. If the York Carers Forum folds, then what money that remains will be donated to a charity. Funding venues for meetings has been difficult. In the last 10 years, the York Carers Forum has met at the Hilton Hotel, Monkgate, City Mills and Skeldgate, and the Quaker Meeting House in Friargate. Venues can also be expensive as well. City Mills only costs £20, while the room at the Quakers Meeting House costs between £70 to £80, and that's a cheap day. At the moment, other alternative venues, such as Spark in Piccadilly and the Brigatanes pub in Micklegate, are being looked into. The age of York Carers Forum members is between 50 and 80, but membership tends to rise and fall. The reasons being a lack of suitable, easy-to-access venues, lack of public transport, and people dying. In recent years, there were some outings, but these folded due to lack of interest. The York Carers Forum is a place where people with caring experience can meet and help each other. Often the group has speakers who will give talks on activities or where to get help and advice. If groups like these are to survive, then they need suitable venues, easy to access public transport, and some form of guaranteed and regular financial support. It's all very well to rely on and praise non-charitable support groups, but they do struggle and need help. With all meetings and events cancelled due to COVID-19 for the present, the future of the York Carers Forum and other similar groups is up in the air. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I've known Kate and Irene ever since we got to York in '96, and they've been doing a really splendid job on a voluntary basis, volunteers. So it's absolutely self-help, carers helping other carers. That's what the forum is all about. They are running short of energy and are facing sort of burnout. And so what they're now doing is referring people to the York Carers Centre, which is paid professionals, fundraising, diddly-diddly-do, and they are putting on all kinds of services for carers. But I just want to really recognize the effort and the passion that have been that have Kate and Irene have brought to the York Carers Forum over the years, people helping people. That's what they were all about.
Well, what I was just saying was just from a member's point of view, and also from having spoken to people who've been involved in the running of the York Carers Forum. You know more about it than I do. I just sort of regularly attend the meetings and just drink the tea, eat the sandwiches, and just abuse everyone.
Good for you, David, and thank you for representing them today.
Okay, then, thank you.
We are now moving on to Anne, and she isn't in local either. So over to Anne at Dignity in Dying, and I've known Anne ever since we started Dignity in Dying Yorkshire, when she was up in Yorkshire in 2015 or whenever we started.
Yes, 14, 15.
14, 15.
Yes.
And I'm passionate about dignity in dying, and I want to live and I want to die under my own scheme of famous last words, cross fingers. So as much as we can take responsibility, that's what I want to do. Over to Anne.
Good morning. Thank you, Sue. Good morning. Have you ever thought about dying? Either your own death or a loved one? We are a group from diverse backgrounds, but all believing that we should have autonomy over our own death. Many of us have had experience of a loved one's pain and suffering at the end of life, or even the trauma of having to travel to Dignitas in Switzerland. This surely can't be right. We believe that everyone should have the choice, especially if terminally ill, to determine when and how they should die in this country. It's not an easy subject, but as it affects all of us eventually, we believe it should be considered, discussed openly, and any personal wishes recorded. It is quite usual, in fact encouraged, to make a birth plan for the arrival of a baby, so why not a death plan for the inevitable opposite end, when, let's face it, you will know more about it anyway. We try to encourage open discussion and point out that at the moment we are not legally able to have the choice of an assisted death, if that is our wish, in this country. We work with Dignity in Dying, a national campaigning organisation trying to influence MPs to act on the majority of what the population want. 84% have indicated they would like, which is a change to the law to allow this. Also, we promote the ethos of compassion in dying, which is preparation for the end of life, by making advanced decisions, lasting powers of attorney, living wills, etc. Our group was formed in 2014 and for a few years hosted regular meetings, addressed other groups, pressurised MPs and the medical profession, held information stalls and petitions, etc. But unfortunately, due to personal circumstances, we haven't been as active for some time. The good news is that the group is about to be reformed under an enthusiastic new leader, Astrid Hartland. She would love to hear from anyone who may be interested. This is quite fortunate, as due to the dramatic effect the risk of COVID could have on our lives, more people than ever are thinking of their own mortality. So hopefully the medical profession and MPs will take this on board, respect our wishes and act on them to change the law, which would allow us choice and dignity in our final days. Sue, who is a member of our group, wrote a poem which summarises admirably our thoughts, so I've asked her if she would share it with us. Thank you.
Terminal 1. Misery incarnate with indefinite leave to remain. No thanks, enough's enough. I'm out of here on the first safe, easy, comfortable ticket I can find. One way, no stops, destination confirmed. Not for me the £10,000 gamble of a trip abroad. I mean, what if the body warps or the mind melts or the money melts as well? The bloody British law needs changing, and that's a fact. Wish I was a dog or some other kind of pet Their misery soon ended, not like mine. Just take me to the vet. God give me strength may work for some, but what about us atheists? It's my life, it's my death, it's my choice. That's all I ask. I could do with a bit of peace and quiet after a life lived with gusto and fully appreciated. So, with many thanks to existence, thanks for having me. Over and out. Sue.
Thank you, Sue.
That's the passion. That's the thought for the day. People, we're living now. We're going to die. Please think about it. Think about what you want. Don't leave it till the last minute. We're going to have a speaker on advanced decisions for AWOC in November. So if you'd like to join us for thinking about that, because it then frees you up to enjoy every day, because you've grasped the nettle and you've got a grip on it. Okay, putting the specs back on, and it's going to go bounce immediately from death and dying and brandishing your banner outside the Houses of Parliament and getting them to change the law. We're now going to table tennis, and we're going to Ron and his table tennis. Where is Ron? There he is.
Oh, hello, I'm Ron. Good morning to everyone. Organiser of Dunnington Table Tennis Group. We attempt to play table tennis on a Thursday morning and a Tuesday evening. Various ages really. We have one or two juniors, just a couple, and the rest of us are probably between 50 and so I think we've got some over 80. Yeah, I started my football career many years ago in local league. Didn't play at a great standard, but I enjoyed my Saturday afternoons playing football, and later on I did quite a bit of distance running. As age crept up on me, I couldn't do that anymore, so I was looking for another sport to play, which table tennis you can play to a good age, as long as you can move about a bit. We play mostly doubles. It's not quite as strenuous as singles, and also if you lose as a team. There's not the acute embarrassment of being thrashed by some marvelous player. We try to be relaxed about it, relaxed about playing. You know, there's not everything. If you do get beat, I try to put some novices with more experienced players and hopefully get a good game. We have social events, dinner, and we have a bit of a competition, but again, it's all very low key. We have a little bit of a buffet afterwards. We knock off at about 11 o'clock. We play from 9 to 12, and we have a tea, coffee, and a bit of a chin wag. You know, we have a good membership. We've got 40 people all together. We enjoy each other's company as we get older, and we have made a couple of friends, 2 or 3 friends in fact, through playing table tennis. We're not in a competitive league, so there's not too much pressure on people. That's the aim of the game really, to enjoy ourselves in a relaxed way with a bit of competition thrown in. But that's about it for me. It's not short but sweet, but that's the Dunnington Table Tennis. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. And because this table tennis event was in one of my York 50 Plus festivals as an event, I went down with my camera and tried to take photos of all these people, you know, bashing away and catching the ball and in my shot, catching the ball in the shot. And it was great fun. I really enjoyed it. Not that I played table tennis at all, but everybody was having a good time. It was down at the local Dunnington Sports Club. Do you have to pay? Oh, no, I'm not supposed to ask questions. Okay, so finding a venue that you don't have to pay for, or that you get people to pay and cover the costs of the hire of the venue, is one of the obstacles that you need to think about when you're doing your own self-help group and making sure it can continue. Okay, Sue mentioned, oh, ballroom dancing, I see. Right, this was it. We were going to have, John was going to talk to us about ballroom dancing because he's been part of a ballroom dancing group out in Acaster Mulvis for many, many years. And but it's all wound down because when you're talking about ballroom dancing, you're talking about people close together and changing partners and breathing into each other. Anyway, so the COVID-19 has put a stop to ballroom dancing and sequence dancing. And this is a great shame because he then told me about there are groups in Acomb, Chapel Fields, Dunnington, Stockton-on-the-Forest, Widdington, Wilberforce, and others. And this is just in York and surrounding area. And you think to yourself, all these people who have been going and dancing weekly or fortnightly or monthly are not dancing anymore. And then you think, if this has been the highlight of your week, what are all these folk doing now? And then it brought home to me the fact that people who are doing activities that involve other people like that are really facing a lot more isolation than they have before the coronavirus. The other thing that I do know is that some of my AWOCs are in choirs, and choirs, they found ways of digitally enabling people to sing together in a choir, which must be quite amazingly technically interesting. But there are ways of doing that. But we can talk about all that later. But I just did want to keep this whole ballroom dancing and dancing in there as well. Physical and whatever. Okay, and now over to Helen, who is going to tell us about co-housing.
Right, hello everybody. Yes, well, the co-housing, the fair-handed co-housing came out of my experience as a young woman, really, working in various residential care settings, and later my experience, current experience with my father, who's in a care home, and the lack of autonomy that most people face as they get older. Also loneliness and various other, there's all sorts of problems that people get as they get older. I've talked for years to various people about the idea of a community of neighbours, a community of good neighbours to support each other as we get older and possibly buy in our own care, have a say in who that is and the conditions, and so you get to choose when you go to bed or when you get up or what you wear or what you eat. But obviously people are thinking, yeah, that's a great idea, but for the future. But 5 years ago, I lost my husband. It made me realise that it's no good waiting until you need this in order to put it in place. You have to put it in place long before you actually need that community support. I mean, I have great friends and families, but it's not the same thing as having a neighbourhood. Partly the idea of that, the difficulty in asking for help that people have talked about in other contexts here. So I started to investigate co-housing, and co-housing is really a movement where people live in separate homes, but with communal facilities, and where the actual community is designed so that people interact on a daily basis, so that you might have a communal house where people go and have meals. Oh, is it only 1 minute left? Okay. But anyway, I linked up with a friend, and we've started recruiting people. We have now about 10 active people. We've applied for grants so that we are developing our ideas. We're having a series of workshops so that interested people might like to join us. You can get in touch with me. My contact details are around, or you can email Spare Handle. We also have a Facebook page, although I must admit it's not as active as it should be. So we're hoping to do a series of five remaining workshops. We were hoping to do them face to face, but unfortunately they're now going to have to be online, I think, in a couple of weeks. So please, if you're interested in the idea of living in a supportive, sustainable community, not just for older people, but for younger people as well. We like the intergenerational thing. We think we can be helpful to our younger neighbours as they could be helpful to us, and we can support each other as well. People need support. It's like creating your own village, I suppose.
That's a lovely idea, isn't it?
I hope so.
Lovely idea. But you'd actually need money to because you're going to build it, aren't you? Right, wait a minute. Okay, so thank you very much indeed.
And that's, but in some ways, I mean, that's the advantage that many older people have, that we're actually fairly rich in housing. We just don't have, but we need that support. So we've got money to put in if we sell our own houses, and maybe even support other people who haven't got as much. So.
Okay, so yes. So what I was going to say is now, have we shot our bolt? Oh no, we've got one more, Rachel's ideas on links. Okay, so I'm just going to do one more little thing about linking people, because it comes back to Retired Men's Forum and other groups that have fallen out of contact with one another. Rachel Jenkins, she isn't actually with us today. I think, is she on page 2? Let me have a little look. Page 2. No, right. Okay, so Rachel is 91 and she lives in Dunnington, and she came up with this idea of links, L-I-N-K-S. And her idea was that people should be able to be supportive, or to give or receive, or to be in touch with, or to call on people, or to phone them up, or to do their shopping, or to do whatever. That kind of interaction between people in a village was very important, and she called it links. And it hasn't got off the ground because of it needs organizing. And the idea was that this self-help thing, but when you want to do self-help, you have to have a driver for the vehicle that everybody's going to ride on. And you need that kind of a driver, or that kind of a person to take it on, to pull it together, to link it all together, as Anne said. And she also, Rachel, was very concerned about the fact that everything seems to be centralized. Don't get me going on Brexit and the government. Centralized into the government. No, all right then. Centralized. And so she was thinking of the City of York Council trying to organize events around the city and live well, York and so on. So that's great. But then we've also got all the charities that are organizing from the centre, like Age UK and My Site and all the different OK and all the different charitable organisations who are organising from the centre outwards. That's why I said, let's have charities in this discussion today, because down on the grassroots, here we are all at the grassroots in our own villages, in our own parishes, in our own, little streets and our communities. How can we grow our own self-support from the ground grassroots up? And so that's what she was very much into as well. So I did just want to recognize that Rachel had all these ideas in our village in her 90s, and this is what we're trying to grow. We're trying to sow seeds in all the different localities and say, yes, you can do it. Famous last word. Okay, you can do it. Yes. Right, in the chat, it's now, we've had all our speakers, so you can all come off mute if you want to. And it is now time for us to ask questions or to have comments on any of the speakers that you've heard. What do you want to ask them? What do you want to say to them? What struck you as being important for you? The floor is now open. Yes, David.
Well, I mean, I mentioned in my talk that York Carers Forum has had difficulty finding venues that are cheap as well as being practical, and that seems to be a running thread throughout all self-help groups, finding places that fit those needs.
Anybody,
I mean,
if anybody just wants to put your hand up, and we'll. Can I just interrupt a second? Ian, can you keep an eye on the second page? Or can you keep an eye on everybody? Because I'm on page 1 at the moment and I don't want to miss anybody.
That's fine, Sue.
Yes,
That's fine.
David, coming back to you. Oh, Ian, by the way, is our support, as our IT support and help. So if you need any help, it's Ian that I'm looking at, Ian Sadler. Okay. Where was I?
There was a comment from Monica, Sue.
Monica.
There was a comment from Monica earlier what might be of interest. She said, I'm okay, going back to the poll, she said, I'm okay with online resources, but it's not always to ask for help because some people are not willing to give it. That was a comment from Monica earlier on in the day.
Good. So we'll stay in touch with Monica because she's on the phone, and Catherine's just there, and some people are on the phone only, so they're coming in through chat. Okay. Okay. Anybody else want to ask? Yes, Julie.
It's been very interesting to listen to everybody this morning, but there seems to be one gaping hole. A lot of what we've been talking about predicates health and activity and physical mobility. And there are a lot of us in the older age group who have chronic health problems and disability, for whom even a self-help group is difficult to access.
Mm.
How would you, well, you're a member of AWOC.
And how often do you get to see me? This took a fair amount of juggling and a lot of luck. Yeah, it is an impossible challenge. Social care doesn't meet our needs. There are massive health inequalities in terms of accessing healthcare. And if you happen to be socially isolated because you don't have children, you don't have close family members, and you don't have physical access to a support network, you are in an exceptionally vulnerable position.
Yes, I agree. Yes, Sarah.
Sue, I'll just come in. I've got to leave the call in a minute. I did let Sue know before I joined because I'm due to be speaking at another event. But it's a really good question that's just been raised. But, you know, one of the things we're looking at, and it's a good example that's been raised today around how tech and digital can be seen as an enabler and support people with disabilities to engage if they are supported to access online digital and tech solutions, because, you know, naturally we wouldn't want anybody to be excluded from any activity. But again, you go back to those original questions, and I think 25% of people said they weren't comfortable with online solutions. That reflects a gap for those that are digitally excluded. So we need more to do, but we need to do more. But I think one of the key lessons from COVID is the power of digital and tech if it is looked at through an inclusive lens. So we have to address the issues that people face that haven't got access to an online solution. But the very fact that Jane's on the call is a good one.
In mind that if we are going to move to more things on high tech, we need the systems which we can speak and use to be improved. We've only just in my village got fibre broadband, and in all the years we've had ordinary broadband, it's never crashed out. We've had fibre broadband for about 2 months, and we've had 2 sessions where we've not had any contact for 6 hours. So how good is that? Plus the fact it only cost me £29 a month before, it now costs me £44 a month. So people need to think about that. It's not a simple solution.
So can I just say thank you very much to Joe for joining us for the session, and good luck with your next one, and good luck with actually the whole City of York Council and keeping us all more or less in good health and thriving or not thriving. Well, anyway, you're doing your best. Thank you for doing your best, Joe.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Okay, so to Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, Joe just said a lot of it for me just then, which is always helpful when somebody's thinking something very similar to yourself. I think your point about people with complex health conditions, chronic health conditions, is a really important one. And what we know at Self Help UK is that the majority of groups that are active are often around people's health. And I think this is something that, you know, people like the City Council in York and other areas around the country are really going to have to really get their heads around as we get older. And we know that we're aging with more ill health than good health, unfortunately. And what we know about being part of a group from an earlier point in your life is that it can really help keep you well, keep you active. So the preventative part of being part of groups, no matter what they are. There's been some really helpful research done in Australia, of all places, into looking at the more groups you're part of, the more connections you have, the more things that you do, the longer you live well. And they've proven that, and they've done some really helpful work looking at how to connect people in their communities, particularly villages and rural areas. So we do know that being part of a group will help you stay well for longer. And that's from your table tennis that you're doing to, you know, your retired men's groups, to those co-housing experiences people are trying to deliver. You know, these are all how we keep well and healthy. But where we live with long-term health conditions, and I live with 2, you know, I've already started on my journey to older health with 1 or more long-term condition. Then it is important that we meet each other, that we do learn from each other about how we manage our conditions and how we get hope from each other. I think when you're isolated, and I can speak from my own past experience, very isolated. I was retired from work at the tender age of 27, didn't work for nearly 9 years. Lived on my own, lived in a flat, don't have children, wasn't with a partner. And I became very lonely, and that exacerbated my health issues. Of course it does. I don't believe anybody with a chronic long-term condition can remain, mentally well if you are living on your own in total isolation. And the change for me happened when I found a group and I reached out. Now, we talked about right at the beginning, it's not easy for everybody to do that asking for help. And that's where we need to make it really normal in our communities, in the way that we talk about asking for help as not being a weakness. It's actually a real strength to ask for help. And I asked for help, and it changed everything for me, and it showed me what I could do. And instead of having a mindset which was what I couldn't do anymore, being quite disabled, things I felt I couldn't do, the group members showed me that there was so much more I could do, and that I needed to change things. Maybe I had to do things differently. I had to take more rest. If I wanted to do something, I knew I'd probably be in bed for a couple of days afterwards. And that was the price I started to be prepared to take, because I wanted to be back out in the world and back in my community. The groups are there, the purpose is so varied, as we can see from today's meeting. It doesn't matter, as far as I can see, what the groups are. The benefit of coming together is what we're all looking for, the way that we connect to each other, the way that we start to show what's possible to others and they show us what's possible. So I'm sure you've all had members join your groups who, when they first come along, they're quite withdrawn, they don't really know who everybody is, they feel very, they might not say a lot, their confidence often isn't so great. But within a few weeks of coming along to your meetings, you'll start to see people opening up. And within a matter of months, people are the ones that are the first to welcome a new member into the group. They're the first person that will actually say, hello, who are you? Where have you come from? And that's what we call at Self-Help the helper principle. And it's a real thing that people have been researching, which is saying, when you help somebody else, you feel better than the person that you've just helped. It's a fact. It's the reason why lots of people do volunteering. It's not because they're going to get loads of accolades, because believe us, we don't when we volunteer often. But what we do is we feel so much better in ourselves than the person we've just helped does. And that's what self-help is all about. We help each other and we help others, and they help us back. And I think that's the thing that is really important, to find those ways. Now, Joe mentioned about digital. Yes, we can't get away from it after COVID. It's now become something that we are having to get our heads around. We're all having to learn how to use it. And so that digital exclusion is something that's really real. And that's where groups like this have got a real power to be talking to the City Council about how can we get more projects to help others who don't quite know how to use the technology get onto it. We've been doing that at Self-Help. We've got lots of helpful guides on our website on how to get onto different things. So, there is resource there, but we've got to make sure people know about it. And finally, and I know I'm taking up a lot of space, but I just feel so passionate about this, we've got to be creative in the way that we talk to each other and the way we reach out to each other. We've always had to do that, and self-help groups have been amazing at it. And it's not just about let's get online. Yes, that is an answer, and it's something we really have to take seriously. But there's the old-fashioned way of, some of you are already doing it. You're writing to each other, you're sending emails. People are going for walks with each other, distanced, of course, and just way of connecting. And that's the thing that I think we've got to try and really keep going throughout the end of this pandemic, hopefully, and into the future, is encouraging more people to join groups, but find really innovative and clever ways to keep connected. Thank you, Sue.
I hear your passion. That's fabulous. Okay, I agree with everything. Right. Okay, George.
Can I just follow on from what Sarah's just said? going to something for the first time can be the most difficult thing to do, and it's a barrier. And helping people, you know, going with somebody to something can open a door that otherwise remains shut, because going on your own to something for the first time is quite daunting. And then the second point, and it relates to something Sarah said, something for the first time, how you are welcome means whether you go a second time. And it's something which is so important. And people talk about it. They talk about why they didn't go back to something. And it was because of what happened when they went the first time. There is a real connection between what's going on in our city relating to social prescribing and organisations such as the ones we see on the screen today. Is that connection there? And do we feel that that connection really is there? Because there's a lot of investment going into social prescribing in York at the present time.
So social subscribing in York, does it rely a lot on the big website, Live Well York, that has all the different activities and charities and groups and goodness knows what on it, so that anybody and everybody can access Live Well York, if they've got a computer, get on the web, and it does cover a huge amount of territory, and has got this kind of community directory that people can dip into and can find out all the different activities that are going on. Social prescribing, yes, and it is a question of your health and your mental health as well as your physical health, and that's got to, we've got to have a level playing field on that, because we're now finding out that mental health is equally as important as your physical health, and in fact they can help each other. Okay, Sarah. Oh,
yeah, I just want to reply to George's point. I think you make a really good point there, George, about social prescribing and the link to groups like yourselves. We've been involved quite heavily at Self Help UK around social prescribing, and it's something that I think is great in terms of it's really helping the medical profession understand that there's groups like yours out there and that you actually are valuable to people's health and well-being, and that's a good thing. I think some areas though, where the way they do social prescribing, there's often this way in which they just say, "Oh, go along to this group," but they don't contact the group and say, "We've just met somebody who might want to be interested in your group. Maybe you could do exactly what you said, George, about you could welcome them. You could actually make that an easy transition for somebody." We've had some quite bad experiences where people have been socially prescribed a self-help group. Somebody's turned up and they've walked through the door and said, "Well, doctors told me I've got to come." And the group are there saying, "Well, we don't know who you are, what you're here for." And you know, so there's some really bad practice out there. So I think it's really important that groups like yourselves, you know, do engage with social prescribing. I don't think you shouldn't, I think you should. But I think the social prescribers need a lot of training to make sure that they understand the value of self-help groups like yours and how to work with you and how to help people access your services so that they're not put off and they don't have those terrible starts that, you know, we've been working quite heavily with Nottingham Trent University, who are the leading researchers on social prescribing, and you know, together we've created a training course for social prescribers on how to work with self-help groups. So if you've got any social prescriber links, then please tell them about this course, because it's absolutely to help those social prescribers out there to learn more about what you're doing and how to work with you and how to help people access your course, your groups, in a way that makes them feel welcomed and that you know that there's people coming. And I think there are issues there going down the line around resources and how groups may struggle to be able to support as many people as are being sent to them, and how you need to work with your local authority to look at funding and other things. As you say, lots of money is being put into social prescribing, but not into the big groups.
Thank you very much indeed. Very good. Now, Julie was the first one up there.
Heidi had put her hand up earlier.
Hi, oh my goodness, we've got Heidi, we've got Julie. I haven't heard from Heidi yet. Do you want to? Whoa, can you write down, Anne, whose hands are up? We're all. Hang on a minute. Okay, Heidi, over to you.
Hi, thanks, Ian. I am a social prescriber, which was why I wanted to sort of get in there now. Unfortunately, I have got to leave very shortly. I didn't know about the self-help organisation, so that's brilliant to find out about that, and definitely something for us to research. In terms of we need to have that. So some of the more niche groups, an excellent resource for us. So find out about them, everything that's available to signpost. We don't to the groups with people to introduce them, organisers to begin with, and having people towards that rather than, like you say, just sort of pointing someone toward. Be really daunting to go to a new group or whatever it is, and just sort of let them know that is something we're really aware of. So I kind of hope that we're very busy, and obviously it's a huge, either aren't able to run or are only online accessible. It's something that we've got links, we can help people, we can support people with IT, we can link them to organisations that can support them, but what we find is that a lot of people they don't want to, they're not interested, and that's totally reasonable, so then it's a real challenge of how we sort of can link people into groups that aren't physically running at the moment. So that it's challenging times for us, and it's frustrating because we know that there's some brilliant groups out there that would be perfect for people who are referred into us.
Okay, Heidi, thank you very much. And I can put people in touch with you, or
so I work in primary care, and so the referral pathway for that would be for people to either contact their GP, or we do actually have a hotline that people can phone directly, so I can let you have that phone. In fact, I'll pop the phone number in the chat.
That's lovely. Okay, that's great.
Yeah, and people can just literally ring into my team.
Thank you very much. Okay, we've got 3 people with hands up. So Julie, I think, was first.
It really loops back to one of the earlier comments that we're talking very much in terms of loneliness and isolation, but what we're not necessarily thinking about are the serious cognitive impacts of a lack of social interaction and physical contact with others. Many people with disabilities and chronic illness are living with less than 1 hour a day of human interaction. There is research that shows that causes neuronal cell death, brain shrinkage, and cognitive impairment. It isn't just about being lonely. Sorry.
So we need to...
Damn scientists coming up with all these really grim facts and figures. Yeah, I know.
So, no, that's great. So we need to talk on the phone. You need to be on the phone all the time, dear.
It isn't just about telephone contact. It isn't just about technological platforms of contact. It is actually about physical interaction. We're primates. You watch groups of primates. They touch, they groom, they interact. And when people lose that, when the only physical contact they have is medical procedures and care workers washing their bottoms, they have lost something absolutely critical.
Yeah.
If you saw that program called The Write-Offs with Sandy Toksvig last night, and it was...
I didn't, no. I was watching another channel as it happened. Why?
I'm just saying this to everybody. I'm just saying it to everybody. Sandy Toksvig, was hugging it was people who were illiterate and couldn't read writing, and the whole, whenever they went out, the whole world was a jumble, all the signs and the lettering that they couldn't read, and they felt of themselves as write-offs. And what Sandy was, this is leading directly into it, what she was doing is welcoming them, and she was taking them in as part of her family. She was hugging them, she was smiling at them. It was all physical contact and whatever. Feeling of
it actually does something far more fundamental than that, Sue. That physical contact, even just patting or stroking someone's arm, causes them to release a neurochemical in their brains called oxytocin. Get together in physical groups and you touch and you share common goals, you release chemicals like dopamine, which make you feel better. When you have a range of stimuli, you release more serotonin in your brain. Serotonin also has a critical function in your immune system as well as in your mood. It is so fundamental to health and well-being to have physical contact, and that is the real critical risk that we're facing.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to shut up.
Input.
Oh, excellent. I'm behind you 100% on that.
Yes,
because
no, but at least she's got them for me. But if you're living on your own, you can't have that. You don't have a personal hugger to come round. No.
Yes. Well, I'll start at the very beginning, I suppose. The one thing that we haven't mentioned all morning is the LGBT community, of which I am a member. We need to bear in mind that the large proportion of the LGBT community will be AWOCs, and will have not necessarily considerable, but will have very different needs as they grow older. And for the gay community, even more so, because we were always criminalised way back in the 1970s, 60s, and therefore trying to come to terms with life as it is these days is not necessarily easy. My partner died 5 years ago. We'd been together 41 years. He was 9 years older than me. He had dementia, which caused no end of troubles. And we just need to bear those sort of things in mind when we're looking for support and care. We need to find out, especially if they're single people, what their background is. I know it's not easy, but it's something that we need to try and determine and try and make them feel comfortable in engaging with the care organisations. The other thing which I've noticed this morning is it's very nice to have all these other areas with activities. And yes, it's very important that that first meet goes well. And for a number of the organisations, like the table tennis things and the Heworth men's group, they most probably are all men of the straight community, if one dares say that, and would not be accepting for people from the gay community that might like to join in those things. They would feel very uncomfortable because they're with men of their own age group who, when we were youngsters, were very anti our lifestyle. So it's very difficult sometimes to find those links and to find those groups that support you. Fortunately for York, and I don't live in York, I live outside Ripon, the York LGBT Forum is very, very supportive in a number of things. But of course, it's very small in what it does because of the nature of the fact that it's a voluntary organisation. But you need, for some of the other organisations in the locality, to be a bit more accepting of LGBT members. In my village, I organise the Christmas fair, which is a self-help group. We do all sorts of things in the way of social activities. And as Billy Joe Muggins is inclined to be the organiser, as Sue put it, the bus driver, everybody falls in behind me, and I've got a way of working with people such that I know what their strengths and weaknesses are. I'll work on their strengths. And we as a group in the village are very, very active. I suppose something like about a third to half of us are single people, either through death, divorce, whatever. But yes, we work very well together. But I just want to sort of put that perspective that don't forget that there are a lot of people out there that have even greater difficulty looking for and accepting help. Thank you.
Quite right. Quite right. And I'm a member of the LGBT Forum, and we've been going since I've been on their committee trustee since 2006 when it started. And so I'm very aware that you need to have all your hats ready to go at any minute. David, did you have your hand up?
Yes, it was just something about a lack of support for carers after the person they cared for has died. Because I just felt that if it hadn't been for, say, organisations like the Carers Centre and the Carers Forum, I would say that those in authority, when they just sort of feel, oh, the person they were caring for has died, so they don't need any support anymore, and you just sort of cast aside. And also, I mean, when I was working at Tesco's Clifton Mall, when my mother died, I got no support whatsoever from the management, from the union at all. So, I mean, granted, there's sort of a lack of support due to financial and resources, but I think it could be that people just don't want to know. Yeah.
Or they're too busy with their own lives or whatever. Okay, a final question or comment from Helen, and then I'll just gently wind us up, I think, because we're nearing our time. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, very interesting what everyone's been saying, and I suppose, and I take it all on board and sympathise with all of it. And I suppose part of what we're wanting to create in York is something that will support us in those times of loss or grief or disability or all of the other things that isolate people from each other. Because however close you are to your friends or family, you still, I mean, certainly as me now as a single person, you know, I don't get an hour's contact a day with people directly. I don't even get it indirectly, not every day. And I think that's why it's become, I think we do need to change the way we live. We need to create those community bubbles that help us to get through those difficult times. And that's why I think it's really important, and why I've put my heart into creating a co-housing group, I suppose, because I'm hoping that is some sort of insulation, although of course it doesn't stop you from experiencing difficult times, but that it's a way of helping everybody through it.
Okay, this is very interesting because I had 4 questions to keep you all going, talking for the 3/4 of an hour we had on discussion. But in fact, we haven't looked at any of them because you've all been so forthcoming and sharing and got ideas. But I will just leave you with these 4 questions because it'll get you thinking about it, and it'll get you feeling about how you yourself live. Why and how did you first join a group, and how did you feel? You see, and then we could all take, how many you've got? 23 of us here, and we could all tell our stories of our first time we joined a group and how it was for us. Then the second one was, what benefits did you find for yourself, and what are the benefits for all the group members? So then you're talking about, again, yourself nourishing and the nourishment for all the group members. What are the obstacles to your participation in the group, which will be very different from very different people? And how can you ensure, or how can you help the group to continue in these difficult times? So that's another whole Zoom event. How can we ensure the continuation of things that we have benefited so much from, which have gone into abeyance or have changed radically? And then on a more strategic level, what are the differences between self-help and organized groups? and what are the pros and what are the cons? Because if you're in an organized group, it doesn't matter if you're there or not, it'll go on regardless with any luck. But if you're in a self-help group and you've been helping each other, you will be missed. You will be missed. And your contribution is important to people. I'm a theatre person, so being in a show teaches you that the show must go on. Mm-hmm. And if you're not there playing your role, playing your part, the whole thing suffers. And that's what I've learned from being in theatre, and that's what I want to stress in all our self-help groups, that we're doing it for ourselves and we're doing it for others, and with others, and we are vitally important to each other. We are all, no, that's it. We are all vitally important to each other. There you are. Right, I'd just like to mention the other two events that are happening this afternoon. There's the yoga session at 1 o'clock on pandemics and aging, and Jim Cannon from the York Older People's Assembly is going to be hosting that and running that. So we better all have our break and go and sign on at 1 o'clock with Jim. And then at 3 o'clock, it's the Age-Friendly York, and they are going to be talking about Age-Friendly York. And they're also going to, and I'll just say this because this is what I was talking about on Radio York this morning, chatty benches. Do you all know about chatty benches? No, you don't.
No.
Right. A woman in Cardiff called Alison Owen Jones, 53, in 2019, felt lonely and noticed lonely people in parks sitting by themselves. So she wrote a sign and she hung it on a bench, and it said, "Happy to chat bench. Sit here if you don't mind someone stopping to say hello." Good idea. And it's been picked up in Canada, the United States, Australia, Switzerland, and the Ukraine, and now York. And in the UK, more than 1 million older people say that they always or often feel lonely. That's 1 million people. And 17% of older people talk to family, friends, or neighbours less than once a week. So these chatty benches, and she's got a little sign, and she goes and puts it on the bench where she is. And she says, "I'm willing to have a chat. This is a chatty bench." And York is going to start that and roll it out when people can get out and about. Famous last words again, because some people are not going to be able to get out and about. And so how do we keep in touch with them? Right, so if you want to join the yoga, please email York Older People's Assembly at outlook.com. That's what Jim has just put in the chat. Okay, we'll have the recording to send to you. We'll have Linda's notes to send to you. We wish you well. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for speaking. And good luck to you all.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much.
Yes.
Bye.
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 Bye. Bye. Right.